Hey everyone, I'm Lyle Burks with the Viking Speaks. And this is the 48 Laws of Power. Hey everyone, it's Lyle Burks with the Viking Speaks. We're back for day 36 of the 90-day challenge. This is the 48 Laws of Power, Law 5. So much depends on reputation, so guard it with your life. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. Through reputation alone, you can intimidate and win. Once it slips through, though, you are vulnerable and will be attacked on all sides. So he goes into detail with a story about in the Chinese War of the Three Kings. One particular king was known as the Sleeping Dragon. Now I forget his exact name, but he was so well known for being a man that had a trick up his sleeve at every turn and was able to overcome every possible outcome or every situation. Like if the other two kings tried to send in a spy or attack from various angles or things of that nature, or whatever the case was, this guy, he knew how to handle it, and he also knew the power of reputation. He took and he used his own reputation as a weapon. And what he did was, at one time, they were sitting in their fortress. Their forces were elsewhere, engaged with one of the other three kings. One of his sentries came rushing in to let him know that the other army of the three kings had an army of 150,000 men marching towards their location at the moment. Now, this guy only had 100 soldiers with him, just to protect the fortress and himself in case of any small skirmish, right? What he did is he told them to open the gates, and all the men were to hide and not make a sound and not to reveal themselves until either A, the enemy entered the gate, or B, the king said so. And then the king went on and put on these elaborate robes, grabbed a pipe, burned some incense, started smoking and chanting and singing up on the wall of the fortress, fully visible for everyone to come see. So this other king with his vast army shows up at the gates, and as he sees him rolling in, he just keeps on singing, doing his thing. And the leader of the big army comes up, and he sees this guy, and he knows who it is. And he stops for a moment. He thinks about entering the gates, but then he remembers this dude is known as the Sleeping Dragon and always has some random trick up his sleeve. Immediately tells his army to retreat. And they don't just retreat, they get the hell out of there as fast as they can. So without ever firing an arrow, never slinging a sword or bloodying the ground, he defeats an army of 150,000 men purely on his reputation. So in another story, he talks about the famous P.T. Barnum. Now, any of you who know me know one of my favorite movies is The Greatest Showman, and they do an elaborate dramatization of P.T. Barnum and his escapades, bringing up the Barnum and Bailey Circus, which would eventually be Barnum and Bailey. So, P.T. Barnum originally wanted to buy the museum in Manhattan. They turned him down, and he was beat out by Peale's museum. So before the offer could be taken place and the sale be done, Barnum knew how powerful reputation was, and he thought, well, if my own reputation isn't strong enough, I'll ruin the reputation of the other. And he went on to spread rumors and lies and manipulate the shareholders of Peale's to say that if the transaction went through, Peale's didn't have the capability to handle both establishments, and they would be spread thin and ultimately have a weaker establishment as a whole rather than have a strong foundation. He did this enough to the point that the stocks, the shares for the Peale's Museum plummeted. And then the original owner of the museum in Manhattan decided to back out, and then they sold it to Barnum at a lower cost. So he went on to create his museum, and his reputation took a while to build. Peale's was always pissed off that Barnum screwed him over, ruined his reputation. So he decided, instead of having a museum of oddities and elaborate shows, he would do one purely based on science and sell all his shows, which were very similar to P.T. Barnum's. He would sell them as scientific. Well, Barnum went straight at his reputation again and did a mirror image of one of his hypnotizing shows. He tried to hypnotize a young girl who appeared to be under his, hypnotic spell on stage. Well, when P.T. Barnum went and looked at the crowd and tried to do the same thing, they all just kind of stared at him and laughed. So in an effort to prove that he had in fact hypnotized the young girl and she was out, he said, now I'll cut one of her fingers off without her knowing. As he began to sharpen the knife, the girl came to and she scurried off the stage screaming. Now, of course, the whole crowd erupted in laughter and thus completely removed the seriousness of the hypnotic show as a whole. Peale's reputation was yet again ruined. His shows declined, attendance fell to the wayside, and his show eventually, his entire museum, it ended up closing, all because his reputation had been thwarted by somebody who understood the power of the reputation. So those are the things from the book. Give you a little bit of my own experience in this. On the flip side, you have to protect your reputation at all costs. It also depends on what you want your reputation to be. So if you want to be remembered or reputable as a strong business person, then you need to make sure to guard that. As a kind individual, as an angry asshole, as a cheater, as a liar, as loyal, anything you want to cultivate, it's going to be done through your actions. People will remember that. So guard your reputation and do not let it slip. Because once you lose it, there's only one thing harder than a reputation to regain, and that's trust. And when you lose your reputation with your family, your customers, your employees, you've lost their trust. So do whatever you can to maintain your reputation, uphold your good name, and stay true to who you are. That's all I got for tonight. Much love, y'all. Backing out.